You can be seated now. Thank you. I am Denise Cassell, the Executive Director of the Coolidge Corner Theater, and we are just very honored that we can have this event here. That's all I want to say, and let the program begin. Thank you so much. Betsy?
I'm Betsy DeWitt from the Brookline Board of Selectmen. I am so proud to be here and to welcome you all on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and the whole town as we honor the men and women, victims and heroes who were caught up in the meaningless, horrific bombings at the Boston Marathon on Patriots' Day and during the following search for the killers. We lost something that day, our sense of safety at a time of shared enthusiasm for an international community event. But we gained something as well, assurance that everyone can be an emergency responder when disaster strikes, and our great sense of solidarity and support for our fellow Bostonians, and especially all the bombing victims and the murdered MIT officer. Training and discipline and resilience, all part of the historic spirit of Patriots' Day and the marathon, carried everyone through the horror and chaos caused by bombs designed to inflict maximum injuries to innocent people. We all grieve for the victims and their families. On a more positive note, our team Brookline, and we believe all Brookline-based runners, came home safely. We thank all those who participated in the Boston Marathon, runners and volunteers, medical and public safety personnel, and ordinary spectators. Everyone did whatever they could to help, wherever they were, and whatever way they could. From Boston to Lexington and Concord, we are all one Patriots' Day community. And from Hopkinton to the finish line, We are all one marathon community. And on April 15th, 2013, and over the next several days, we were and we are one strong Boston community standing together. And now we'll ask our town administrator to lead us through the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mel Kleckner, and I'm the town administrator. It is my great honor to coordinate the remainder of this evening's program. Before doing so, there are a few people and organizations that I must thank. First, we were able to hold this momentous program in such a beautiful facility on such short notice due to the cooperation of the Coolidge Corner Theater, and I want to thank Denise very much for their cooperation. But also the generosity of BrooklineHub.com, who had to reschedule its annual Youth Awards program that was previously scheduled on this evening in this venue. I want to personally thank Harvey Brobman of Brookline Hub for this gesture, and also to let the community know that the Youth Awards has become an important highlight of our community. And, and I encourage everyone to check out our very impressive award winners on BrooklineHub.com and consider attending the program when it is rescheduled for later next month. Secondly, I wish to thank Brookline Access Television for supporting us this evening through filming the event and for creating the photo slideshow that you all was playing as you came in this evening. So thanks BATV and to Andrea Calso in particular. You will hear later from Team Brookline, which is the town's official Boston Marathon charity running team. The Brookline Community Mental Health Center is the town's partner to manage Team Brookline, but they also are a great community resource. I'm particularly grateful to the center for organizing various opportunities for members of our community to seek help dealing with the emotional trauma of the past several days. Thank you, Brookline Center, and thank you to Nancy Weinberg for her leadership of Team Brookline. And finally, I'd like to let you know that the town of Brookline supports the One Fund Boston charity, which was established with the support of Governor Patrick and Mayor Menino to help the people most affected by this tragic event. For more information, please visit onefundboston.org. We are pleased this evening to have Camerata perform. Camerata is Brookline High School's talented choir under the direction of Mike Driscoll. So please welcome Camerata at this time. Thank you, Director Mike Driscoll and Camerata. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce Rabbi Sonia Saltzman of Temple Abai Shalom to address us. Rabbi.
Good evening. I want to thank you for inviting me this evening to speak at this important event. I especially want to thank the town of Brookline for organizing this meaningful gathering. It's a privilege to be here with you tonight. It's good to come together as a community to express our sorrow and our outrage, as well as our gratitude and our pride in the aftermath of the marathon bombings. We come together to mourn the death of Martin Richard, Crystal Campbell, Lou Lindsay, and police officer Sean Collier, who were brutally killed, and to pray for healing for both the injured and the aggrieved families. We come together with deep respect and gratitude in our hearts for those in our community, the police, the firefighters, the medical teams, and the many ordinary people who ran to help those in need. The mixed emotions that many of us feel at this time find expression in a poem by the well-known Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai. In this poem entitled "A Man in His Life," Amichai writes, "A man doesn't have time in his life to have time for everything. He doesn't have seasons enough to have a season for every purpose." Ecclesiastes was wrong about that. A man needs to love and to hate at the same moment, to laugh and cry with the same eyes, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them, to make love in war and war in love, and to hate and forgive and remember and forget, to arrange and confuse, to eat and to digest what history takes years and years to do. We come together this evening having seen the face of evil, and when this happens, we cannot help but feel a heightened sense of vulnerability. We cannot help but feel that life is fragile. Rav Nachman of Bratslav, an 18th century Hasidic rabbi, said, "The world is a narrow bridge, but the most important thing is not to be afraid." Even as we are acutely aware of our vulnerability, we must not let ourselves be overwhelmed by fear. For those of us who are people of faith, we draw strength and comfort from knowing that in our darkest moments we are not alone, that God is with us. But all of us can draw strength from the outpouring of generosity, compassion, and courage that we witnessed over the past few days. We are not alone because countless people in our community gave so generously of themselves. I would like to share with you just one example. One of the lay leaders of our congregation, his name is Eddie Jacobs, is the general contractor of the Boston Marathon. When the bombs exploded, he quickly communicated with a police officer, suggesting that Ohavei Shalom take in the runners who had been forced to stop running. As you may know, Ohavei Shalom is located at 1187 Beacon Street, right before Kenmore Square, right along the marathon route. In all, just about 200 runners came through the doors and were attended to by congregants and staff who happened to be at the synagogue at that time. They were offered a place to rest, phones to make calls to loved ones, food and drink. As congregants learned that Ohavei Shalom had become a shelter for runners, more people came to help. One of our congregants took a runner home with him, gave him sweatpants to wear and a sandwich to eat, and then drove him all the way to Hopkinton, where he had left his car. The world is indeed a narrow bridge. There is much that is not within our control, that is unpredictable. And while we must grapple with this reality, at times like this, at times of crisis, we see that this narrow bridge is lined with people, with communities that reach out to support and to help us as we continue to move forward. This past Monday, I met with the high school students at the synagogue to discuss the events. One of them wanted to know why it takes a tragedy like the marathon bombings to bring unity to a community. What will happen, he wondered, in the weeks to come? Will this sense of unity fade, and will most of us go back to our usual way of being? The answer is not simple. Our situation is similar to what a person faced with a life-threatening illness might experience. When, for example, someone survives a heart attack, she might realign her priorities. She might vow to spend more time with her family. But will this commitment last? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's up to us to make of these moments an opportunity to recommit ourselves to what we know is important and true, but often eludes us, until we come face to face with a crisis. Let us keep this memory of coming together as a community at the forefront of our consciousness and draw from it not only the strength that we need today, but also the inspiration we need to keep doing more and doing better as we go forward. As the rabbis of the Talmud taught us years ago, while it's not incumbent upon us to finish the work of tikkun olam, of repairing the world, neither are we free to desist from it. May we go forward with an open heart. May we find the strength to laugh and to cry with the same eyes, and the courage to be the messengers of compassion and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Saltzman. We're also pleased to have with us this evening Reverend Joe Kevel of St. Mary's Roman Catholic Parish. Please welcome Father Kevel to the podium at this time.
I am here instead for Father Brian Cleary. I will be coming there soon, so in some sense this is a welcoming. G.K. Chesterton once warned us that in order not to forget something, we better not memorialize it. And we do have that caution before us to never forget. But we always turn to our faith traditions, and we ask God to give us strength in time of need. And so I have this prayer that was given to everybody who was at the cathedral, and I'm sure more can be got or received at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross. And it is the prayer that was written. I don't know exactly who it was written by, but it was not something in the annals of the Catholic Church. And so I read this to you today, and maybe we could pause in silence. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-loving God, in you we place our trust and hope. Violence and cruelty can have no part with you. You guide everything with wisdom and love. Hear the prayers we offer for those who lost their lives in the attacks at the Boston Marathon. Heal those victims who have been injured to a healthy and speedily recovery. Bless them with your presence and surround us all with your love. Look also with favor on the families and friends who mourn. Embrace all those in sorrow and give courage to all who suffer. May your presence bless and console us and remove the fear from our hearts. Guide those in authority, O Lord. By the wisdom and integrity of their leaders, may harmony be restored and justice be saved. Grant that peace, the fruit of justice and charity, may reign in America and throughout the world. Amen.
Thank you, Father Kevel. And once again, we will welcome Camerata. Thank you again to Mike Driscoll and Brookline High School's Camerata. The next portion of our program will involve leaders of our town government to help you understand the role of our town departments and other organizations and the role that they played during the immediate aftermath of the bombings in Copley Square, and the dramatic events in the days that followed. First up is Brookline native and Chief of Police Daniel O'Leary. As Chief O'Leary comes to the podium, may I ask our public safety and public works employees of the town and employees of our emergency medical provider, Fallon Ambulance, to stand and be recognized. Thank you for that heartfelt greeting. And now to Chief O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Kleckner. It is an honor to be here tonight to say a few words about the events surrounding the bombing of the Boston Marathon and the murder of the MIT police officer Sean Collier and the subsequent search for and capture of the suspects that were responsible for the heinous act that they committed on Copley Square. I'm truly humbled to be here to speak about the efforts of the people that have participated in the events of that day and the events of the subsequent 5 days leading up to the events of Friday night. I'm talking about the public safety personnel, the police officers and the firefighters, the emergency medical responders, the Department of Public Works in Brookline, and the many residents who pulled together to help one another during these dangerous days. And when I want to talk about the residents, I also want to include the CERT team and the medical response team. Both of those units are made up of residents of the town who volunteer their time to come out to help the residents of the town and the visitors to this town when there is an emergency going on. It was no exception the night of the Boston Marathon when a call went out and over 35 people responded to Temple Ohabi Shalom. Throughout that 5-day time frame, we saw a great horror, but we also saw a great humanity. We saw hatred, but we also saw kindness. We saw resiliency and cooperation. And above all, we saw countless examples of the great American spirit. When I was thinking about how I was going to go about telling you about the role of what took place at the marathon, the roles that people had, and really what took place in the days leading up, I thought the best way was just to not give opinions and maybe just tell you the story as it happened, as it unfolded, and let you decide for yourself how we as a town rose to the occasion. The one opinion I will say is that it was a great example of cooperation. It was a great example of leadership. It was a great example of people coming together to accomplish a goal. And that was no more evident than that Friday, Thursday night into Friday, after Sean Collier was shot and killed, and everybody came together over in Watertown. It didn't matter what department you were from, what your profession was. The only thing you wanted to do was to catch the two people that were responsible. So I just want to tell it as a story, but every story comes with a background. And I think what you have to understand is leading up to the Boston Marathon, there's an awful lot of training, there's an awful lot of planning, awful lot of cooperation and time and commitment to going in to study and to deal with certain things and certain events that may or may not occur. This year was no exception to that. There's probably more training, more cooperation, more talk, more plans leading into it this year than there were in the previous years. I think this year was the 117th time the marathon's been run through Brookline. This past year, 2012, we also saw a major event take place in the city of Boston. The town of Brookline is a member of the Urban Area Security Initiative, the Boston URC, and we put on a 24-hour exercise with all the public safety personnel, emergency medical responders, and this year, to our all good fortune, we included 9 hospitals in the greater Boston region. And those 9 hospitals were responsible for handling the call that went out to mass casualty event in a couple of places in the city of Boston, and they had to manage that during that 24-hour period. And I guess it's a bittersweet that we did it, but we did it, and in the training and the exercise and the cooperation and the getting to know people paid off when we had to use it Monday on the 15th during the Boston Marathon. In Brookline, if you walk the street like I do during the marathon, you see that we have a command post that's set up. The command post is a MEMA truck. It has a MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management. It has cameras in there. It has computers. It has all sorts of radios that we can talk to anybody along the route, any of the departments along the route. We also have a person, a police officer, a supervisor that's assigned to the bunker out in Framingham, which runs all the control operations for the Boston Marathon. In our command post on Beacon Street at Beacon and Marion, we had representatives of the police department, fire department, Fallon Ambulance, who's here tonight, Mass Emergency Management, we had the Department of Public Works, and we had the Health Department. All participated in the decisions that were going to be made that day. We had our plans in place, and it started out, to be honest with you, to be a beautiful day. Things were going well. I think it was a good day for the runners. We even saw the lead of the women's race change at Beacon and Marion, where the leader who was in front for a long time got passed by 3 people as they went by the command post. Unfortunately, about 2:50 that afternoon, it all changed. A bombing happened down at the finish line. We all know that. We all know where we were when we got notified of it. But I think you have to understand how everything kicked in the town. Just prior to that, the hours leading up to that, the town personnel, town department heads of the departments that I mentioned, myself, Chief Ford in the fire department, Kevin Johnson of the DPW, Alan Balsam from the health, Mr. Kleckner, the town administrator, all met at certain times during the marathon leading up to that to talk about what was taking place and what our plans were and how things were going. And we stayed in contact throughout. So as soon as that bomb went off, bombs went off, and as soon as we got notified, radios clicked in, people started doing what they had to do. The race got stopped. The police, we had sent a captain immediately down to Boston to confer with them, let us know what was going on, and we had to clear Beacon Street. Clearing Beacon Street at that point was not the easiest task because it was thousands of people along Beacon Street. The race was pretty thick on the people coming through, and the Red Sox game was getting out. Boston told us that they were not going to allow the crowd from the Red Sox game enter Kenmore Square. They were going to push them back towards us, so we prepared for that. Boston let the runners that were on the course that weren't stopped in Newton continue through if they wanted to the Boston Common. Otherwise, they got stopped down around Mass Ave. When the Red Sox crowd came our way, we ended up funneling them off St. Mary's Street onto the side streets. Everybody cooperated. Again, I can't stress, thousands of people, everyone cooperated. When we got word that a bomb may have been placed inside a barrel at the finish line, we made a decision to clear all of the business areas in the town because that's where the barrels were. We asked not only the police to clear, we asked the fire to help us, we asked DPW, we asked Fallon Ambulance, and they all gave us an assist to clear it. And I think Beacon Street was probably cleared in record time. We even had a lot of the owners of businesses, of restaurants and bars along Beacon Street voluntarily close and asked their patrons to leave so they didn't stay around there. We opened up a shelter at Temple Ohabi Shalom because the runners, about 150, 175 runners, had no place to go. We put a call out to the CERT people. Over 35 CERT and MRC members responded immediately to the temple to help out. The temple graciously opened their phone lines, let them start making their calls. We kept Beacon Street inbound closed so we could run emergency vehicles up and down the street, and buses. We let buses go up and down the street so they could come and get those runners out of the temple and down to a hotel down around the Park Square area. We kept Beacon Street closed until 7:30 at night. However, just prior to that, as you know, I explained earlier that we thought that a possibility that bombs may have been in the barrels down in the finish line. We were able to get information from Boston that it was that any of the bombs were localized to the finish line, and barrels were not really a concern. And with that, and to their credit and honor, the DPW members decided that they were going to clean up Beacon Street, take the barricades away, and remove every bit of trash. So when Tuesday morning came, people would come through Beacon Street like nothing happened at all in Brookline. And they did that, and we thanked them for it. At the same time, a little bit before that, we were asked to send, the police were asked to send their response team to Boston. The captain had met with one of the superintendents in Boston, and our emergency response team, our special response team, went to Boston Police Headquarters to meet with the SWAT units down there. We were given the assignments to guard 3 hospitals on our borders. We guarded Brigham and Women's, Children's Hospital, and the BI Deaconess. We also went down to Park Square and guarded the hotel that is the Stone Hotel. I can't remember the name of it. But we did guard that overnight, Monday into Tuesday. Our officers stayed at those 3 hospitals all through the night on Monday, all through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, until 2 a.m. on Saturday morning. Prior to that time, and during that time, your town saw a lot of extra police personnel being brought into the area. We doubled up on shifts. We held people over. We went into the areas that were busy, such as St. Mary Street area or Coolidge Corner area, had officers out on foot. We went to protect the hotels. You may or may not have seen an increase in police visibility, but we were all through the area during that entire week. On Thursday, we were asked to supply more officers to the city of Boston because President Obama and his wife were coming, and they were going to appear down at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross. We sent 10 bicycle officers to meet up with a squad of 10 Boston police officers, and we had the area just in front of the cathedral was our area of responsibility for the president and his wife. On Thursday night, when everything was just starting to break loose, we had a commander, one of our captains, in the Tactical Operations Center in Boston. Probably a little bit before 11 o'clock at night, after Officer Sean Collier had been shot and actually assassinated, this captain started texting out to us, telling us that the belief was that the murder of Sean Collier could very well have been connected to the bombers. That's information they were getting real time out of the Operations Center. Nothing had been confirmed, but I think through the years of experience, the people in that room made the decision that there's a really good possibility that there's a connection here. We, at that point, got in contact with our officers at the hospitals. Some of them cleared to go over to Cambridge. We did not leave the hospitals unguarded. They stayed guarded by our officers. The officers that went to Cambridge were able to get more first-hand information, and we phoned that back to the police station. The commander in charge of the police station started to double up his cars. People started coming in, officers that were off duty to work. We put them out on the street. We doubled our cars, and we kind of formed a phalanx of cruisers along our borders, along Commonwealth Ave, in the anticipation that the shooters were going to come our way. They did not. However, two of our officers, as the evening progressed, got involved in what happened over in Watertown. I'll get to that in a minute. But I think it's clear to say that the lieutenant that was in charge of the police station that night did an excellent job on assigning the personnel, providing them with information. They knew what was going on, and they weren't going to get caught unawares. If you fast forward till about 12:30, quarter one, or 12:30 at night in the morning, two of our officers, a sergeant and lieutenant, are driving around North Beacon Street, and they see a pursuit take place going into Watertown. They joined the pursuit. They ended up on the street right as the shooting had taken place. When they got out of their car, they could hear the shooting already underway. And they got as close as they could to the scene, and the bombs began to go off. They both ended up getting showered with the parts of the bomb that rained down on them, and they got as close as they could. After the younger brother ran over the older brother, one of our officers actually took part in removal of the subject out of harm's way and over to be treated to the medical personnel and put in an ambulance and taken to the hospital. At the hospital, he was met by a number of officers, including another of our Brookline officers that was down there. At about 2:30 in the morning, at the command post that was set up over in Watertown at the Arsenal Mall, myself and the superintendent met members of the SRT team who had already got their assignment, and they were already making their own plans. They already had the map of where they were going to go, and they were going out to have their perimeter, and they were in control of that. It was about a 4 or 6 block area. I'm not exactly sure which. But they took their orders from the officer that was in charge down there, and they went out without question. And I think that that's important for everybody to know, because you had officers coming in from a lot of different departments. You had a lot of federal agencies, and you had to have one unit step up and be in charge, and that was the Boston Police Department, and nobody said a word otherwise. Nobody said that we didn't want to do it. Everybody did exactly what they were told, and they went out and they did their jobs. 16 of our officers were deployed to Watertown. The 16 of them had their quadrants that they searched, that they had to staff, and they were there from about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning until it all came to a resolution later on that night. In town, we held over extra people. You had double people in town. You had double the officers that you would normally have. By that I mean, at 7:30, we did not change shifts. The day shift came in. The last half shift stayed and worked. At 3:30, that last half shift went home after 16 hours. The day shift then stayed 16 hours. And we kept that going until midnight on Friday night. A lot of decisions got made that day. And one of the decisions was to include Brookline in the shutdown, ask people to stay in, and it was to send the town workers home or tell them not to come home. And I have to tell you, in a situation like that, things change all the time. It's not a standard, straight thing. As information comes in, you adjust to the information. At 7 o'clock that morning, we got some information that led us to believe that it could have been more than just the 2 people involved. It could have been a cell that we were looking at. We didn't know. At that point, I spoke to Town Administrator Mel Kleckner, Assistant Town Administrator Shauna Cronin, and we made the decision at that time to send everybody home and let's play it safe, let's close and include ourselves in what some other towns were doing. We did that, and I think and I know that that was the better move to make, even though it didn't end up that way. About 4 hours later, again, the intelligence changed differently, and we figured we were just looking for those 2 right now. About 6:30 that night, as the word was getting out that they were going to stop the lockdown, I have to tell you that nobody wanted to stop searching that night at all, because everyone was determined to come up with that second guy. And fortunately for everybody, including the second subject, who probably would not have survived the night if we didn't find him in the boat that day. He got located by the subject that I think everybody knows the story of, the boat owner. When the call went out to go to that street and to get people there, 2 of our officers were right nearby. They went down to the backyard. They got their assignments. One of the officers was put with a group on the ground. The second officer was put in the house up on the 2nd floor to keep the eye on the boat. Those officers stayed there until the subject was apprehended. And again, from talking to those officers that were involved, the cooperation at that scene was unbelievable. It was run by people that are pros. Everybody listened to the person that stepped up and took the leadership role, and the person was taken into custody and taken into custody alive. Again, we stayed at the hospitals till about 2 a.m., at which point we were relieved and our officers came home. I thought it was important just to lay that all out there. I think that what you see is the utmost professionalism. We saw throughout that time period a lot of courage, a lot of determination. We saw a lot of really good examples of leadership. But most of all, you're talking about people that wanted to get to a certain point and people that wanted to get to a certain goal. And I'm standing up here in uniform and I'm talking as a police chief, but it was not just the police department. It was everybody. When we asked people to stay home, they stayed home. You saw what happened at the finish line of all of those people that ran to help those victims. You saw the people that probably ran, they said, finished the marathon and ran and gave blood. There was a lot of good things done that day that saved a lot of lives. And I think that it's important to note that the people in front here that stood up and who they represent, the departments that work in this town, they really stood up that day. I think as residents you did as well, because as residents you went from a really nice day, I walked the route, everybody was having fun, to a day of horror. And that's not easy to deal with, and that's not easy to live with, but we're going to get by, we're going to do it, and I think it really speaks to our humanity. So thanks for taking the time to listen, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief, for that gripping story of recounting the last few days and the contributions of the Brookline Police Department. We're very proud of you. At this time, please welcome Dr. Alan Balsam, the town's Director of Public Health and Human Services. As Dr. Balsam is coming to the podium, may I ask employees of our Public Health Department and the volunteer members of our Community Emergency Response Team and our Volunteer Medical Reserve Corps, along with the American Red Cross, to stand and be recognized.
Hi, and thanks for joining us here tonight to reflect on the events of the last week, which have evoked so many emotions in all of us. For members of Brookline's Medical Reserve Corps and Community Emergency Response Team, many of whom are here tonight, these emotions run very deep. MRC and CERT and American Red Cross volunteers were along the race route, staffing medical stations, and in the medical tent at the finish line. For the latter, the events of last Monday will forever be seared in their memory. But no matter what the role of our volunteers, the pain of last week's events persists. The image of first responders, EMS, and medical staff, not to mention bystanders, rushing towards those in need, provides an inspiring coda to the violence. These people saved lives. The CERT and MRC members who responded in minutes to the call to staff the shelter at All by Shalom, and the temple staff who helped with phones and other support, the restaurants like Buddha, Catering by Andrew, and Whole Foods, all will long be appreciated. And the spirit of giving that extended to the many Brookline residents who offered their homes as respite to runners who were stopped here in Brookline, cold, tired, and unable to get to their loved ones and possessions, serves as a beacon to all of us regarding the decency of this community that we love. We've held processing sessions with many of our volunteers and are doing the same with Team Brookline and our own employees. The need for support is ongoing. Now is a time for grief and recovery. For those families of those for the families of those who perished, for those who suffered injury, for those who responded and made us proud, for those who helped in a myriad of other ways, and for all of us who were touched or observed the horror of the last week. It is with both a sense of deep sadness, tempered by great pride and hope for the future, that I conclude these remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. The town of Brookline is known to be a welcoming and progressive community, but it wasn't always thus. A leader who has helped this evolution is our town's Human Relations Director, Steve Bressler. I must also mention that tonight represents Steve's last official act as the town's Human Relations Director. After 39 years of dedicated service to the town, Steve is retiring this week. Please welcome and thank Steve Bressler.
Thank you. Brookline Together. The spirit of the Boston Marathon, Boston Strong. The Boston Marathon, a metaphor for our vibrant society, pluralistic, vital, ever-moving, surging ever forward, a mighty collective spirit, Boston Strong. Athletes striving as individuals, athletes running for charity, Boston Strong. Athletes from all over the United States and the world come to our Boston to prove to themselves that they are Boston Strong, yes, Boston Strong. Athletes of all genders, all races, all religions, all ethnicities, all abilities, Boston Strong. Spectators, adults, children line Beacon Street and pass on the energy of their enthusiasm to the athletes, yes, Boston Strong. Spectators of all genders, all races, all religions, all ethnicities, all abilities. Hear the cheers, feel the excitement, feel the energy, Boston Strong. There are those who cannot stand our democracy. There are those who cannot stand our vibrancy. There are those who cannot stand our pluralism. There are those who cannot fathom, who cannot accept the ability of persons of many different backgrounds to live and play and work and learn and love together. We who are Boston Strong negate those individuals who are haters. We who are Boston Strong negate those groups that are haters. We applaud the police, for they are Boston Strong. We applaud the fire and rescue responders, for they are Boston Strong. We applaud the medical teams who worked so hard to save lives, for they are Boston Strong. We applaud the military who responded, for they are Boston Strong. And we are Brookline, we are Boston, we are Boston Strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Our final leader of town government to speak this evening is Selectman Ken Goldstein. Ken, also a Brookline native, will share a story and words of hope. Please welcome Selectman Ken Goldstein.
Thank you, Mel, and thank you, all of you. The message of the Marathon Day bombers is self-evident. Every BB, every nail, every shred of shrapnel was a missile of intolerance. Like many of you, once the shock of the bombing began to subside, I was left quietly questioning. I wondered about the nature of man, the world that we've created. How could it all seem to go so wrong? Slowly, as we learned about the acts of heroism and volunteerism in the aftermath of the tragedy, my despair subsided. My faith in men was restored. An event I learned about earlier this week helped in my restoration. Though insignificant in relation to the drama of last week, it exemplifies the true nature of the men and women who comprise our community. Trinity Church, that venerable fixture of Copley Square, designed, by the way, by Brookline resident H.H. Richardson, stands in close proximity to the bomb site, and as a result could not open for services on Sunday morning. Temple Israel, where I know many of my Brookline neighbors are congregants, opened its door for Trinity Church to hold its services. A Temple member by the name of Mitchell Shames wrote of this event, and I'd like to share excerpts of his description. He writes, "A few of us determined that rather than simply offering the use of our building to Trinity Church, the members of our congregation should personally welcome our guests. Welcoming the stranger goes to the heart of our Jewish values. With very short notice, others joined in this effort. On Sunday morning, we welcomed over 900 people to Temple Israel. The expression of gratitude on their part was overwhelming. Literally, some had tears in their eyes as they shook our hands while offering thanks. Moved by this expression of appreciation, I decided to stay for the full service. The storied pulpit of Temple Israel was honored by Reverend Sam Lloyd's sermon. In the tradition of our own clergy, the sermon was deeply theological, intellectually engaging, and tremendously comforting and inspiring. In the midst of the service, there was a spontaneous standing ovation, much like the one I saw here today a few moments ago. A standing ovation offered for Temple Israel's hospitality. Rabbi Friedman was invited to the bima, that's the stage, serving as a makeshift altar, and offered a community-wide welcome as well as a few brief words of Torah. He concludes, "Sunday reminded me that we are a beacon of outreach and welcome. The gesture was so simple, the impact profound." So Mitchell knew that this was just the kind of anecdote that we all need to hear at a time like this. Temple Israel's simple offer of welcome is the true nature of our community, and equally significant is Trinity Church's acceptance and embrace of their offer of brotherhood. The spirit of brotherhood is vibrant and alive in our community, and it often takes the form of volunteerism. Brookline is truly a town of volunteers, and I'd like to acknowledge their efforts, particularly in regard to the events of last week. This, as you'll hear in just a moment, was the first year for Team Brookline. The Boston Athletic Association annually provides the town of Brookline with official marathon entries, which the town in the past distributed to various local charities to aid in their fundraising efforts. This year, the causes of 4 charities. Those are the Brookline Mental Health Center, the Brookline Library Foundation, the Brookline Education Foundation, and the Brookline Teen Center, all combined in one coordinated fundraising and marathoning effort. 25 runners trained for months and raised over $125,000 for these charities. I'm pleased to report that all of our Team Brookline runners are safe and are already training in fundraising for next year. I might be taking some license with that, but Dr. Balsam just told you of the response of our volunteer emergency response team, the Red Cross team, the Medical Research Corps, all of whom volunteer not only on April 15th for the Marathon Day each year, but all year long as they train for events such as they were called upon. Brookline Rotary, of which I'm a proud member, sets up every year at the Marathon site, just a few blocks from here in Coolidge Corner, when they serve burgers and hot dogs and they raise money for a myriad of local, regional, national, and global charities. After the news of the bombings was learned, Brookline Rotary had to quickly cut short their efforts and break down their stand so that the streets could be cleared. Please, if you get the chance, let's help them make up the shortfall that they experienced. I'll accept checks later if necessary. We've heard about the remarkable efforts of Temple Ohabai Shalom to quickly shelter stranded runners. We should note, too, that All Saints Parish, Congregation Beth Pinchas, Temple Sinai, Temple Beth Zion, High Rock Covenant Church, and Mars Hill Fellowship Church are all located in Brookline on the marathon route and all joined in efforts of support. We've heard also about the instantaneous response of some Brookline businesses, catering by Andrew, Whole Foods Market, and Buddha Asian Bistro, who provided comfort to stranded runners. I'd like to also acknowledge that many of Brookline's restaurants on Beacon Street know that Marathon Day is probably their biggest day of the year. When they were asked by the police to shut down early as a matter of public safety, they all did so cooperatively, quickly, and willingly for the good of all of us. So please support these good citizens as well. We should add as businesses the Coolidge Corner Theater that we're in right now, who could be showing movies for the price of it and collecting admissions right now, but instead have donated this time for us. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge all of you, the citizens of Brookline, who populate all these volunteer and community-minded organizations, you who donate so much time and money to the good causes, including the One Fund, and you who gather here today to heal and to reaffirm the goodness of mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. So you've heard a lot tonight and through over the last few weeks and months about this Team Brookline. As I mentioned previously, Team Brookline is the town's official Boston Marathon charity running team. And 2013 was the first year of this new Team Brookline approach, and it's been a huge success. And Ken mentioned $125,000, but I'm pleased to announce that Team Brookline has now raised $157,000 for the charities that Ken just mentioned. So at this time, I would like to call upon Liz Burke of Team Brookline to come to the podium. But as Liz comes up, runners and other participants of Team Brookline, please stand up and be recognized.
I just wanted to say a few words on behalf of my team. And as you just heard, Team Brookline is the town of Brookline's official Boston Marathon team. This year we were made up of 26 runners who were each running for one of 4 Brookline nonprofits: the Brookline Community Mental Health Center, the Library Foundation, the Teen Center, and the Education Foundation. So first and foremost, the families of the 4 victims and the countless other people who are injured are in our thoughts and prayers. And we also recognize the heroic efforts of law enforcement and all the first responders. I think that when a senseless tragedy like this happens, it's important to try to remember the good in the world and the kindness and generosity of people, sometimes complete strangers. I think that me and all of my teammates had very different experiences on Marathon Monday. Some of us crossed the finish line long before anything happened, some just moments before anything happened, and many of us, myself included, did not get the chance to cross the finish line at all. I think that one thing that we all had in common that day concerning our experience is the outpouring of support that we received from family, friends, each other, the town of Brookline, and complete strangers, not just on that day, but for the last 6 months. From 7 a.m. practice runs with our coach to fundraising to arriving in Athletes Village that Monday morning, it has been truly humbling to raise money for this town's nonprofits and to be a part of this team. So that day, Of the 25.5 miles that I was able to complete, I was overwhelmed by support from thousands of strangers along the course. A lot of our more inexperienced runners were given a lot of advice from people who had run the marathon before, and we were told that if we did one thing that day to make sure that our name was somewhere on us. And the thousands of people along that course just screaming our name, we had no idea who they were, really carried us through that, carried me through the 4.5 miles that I ran, and I'm sure my teammates through whatever they ran. It is the 1.5 miles that I walked home through Brookline alone and phoneless that I will remember most about that day. I was easily identified as a runner by my bib number, my heat blanket, and my overall disheveled appearance. And the generosity, this is where the generosity and kindness of strangers really came into play. People I did not know, Brookline residents, hugging me, asking me if I needed anything. A group of 4 teenagers stood with me and dialed my family's numbers on their phones as I said them aloud until one went through. A girl came out of her apartment, invited me in, gave me water. A man used the 3% battery power left on his iPhone to MapQuest directions home for me because Beacon Street was closed and I'm actually very new to the area. And then he walked with me until a car pulled over and a woman rolled down her window and said, "Get in, I'm bringing you home." So that 1.5 miles reminded me of the good in the world, not to mention the countless other acts of heroism that we've all seen and heard on the news in the last couple weeks. And I think that Robert Kennedy said it best when he said that we can do well in this country, and the vast majority of people in this country want to live together and want to improve our quality of life. So because of this town and our support, Team Brookline is ready to run again next year and to participate again next year, and we're coming back with an even bigger and better team. The president said we will run again, and I realize now, this was going to be my first and last marathon, but I realize now how important it is to run again and to cross the finish line, and I know that my teammates all share that sentiment, so thank you.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Team Brookline. I will now turn the program back to Betsy DeWitt, Chair of the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, I feel moved and inspired and almost unable to speak. However, today the world has changed. We know that angry dissidents can try to cause the maximum destruction and death of innocent people to create fear because they believe it will help their cause. However, we are Americans and we live in a democracy, and we should be the leaders in promoting the power of peace, not bombs, to bring about change. What happened was an attempt to unravel the close-knit net fabric of the Boston area and to make us cower in fear. We will all remember the victims of the bombing and the MIT police officer who was killed. On their behalf, and on behalf of everyone who played any part over the period from the beginning of the marathon through to the end of the week, we should all go forward and not retreat. And so that's my message, and I'm now going to invite Reverend Jim Sherblum to give us a closing, after which we're going to have a moment of silence, and then we would ask everyone to leave quietly. Thank you.
Brookline Together. It's our work now as we go forward to transform our suffering into hope. Where there is suffering, there is a need for healing. Where we can be healed, there can be justice. Where we find justice, it can call forth our love, and where there is love, there will always be hope. Love transforms through us to become hope. I'd like to ask you if you're willing to join me in a chant that will help us to ground ourselves when we come upon that. I'll give it to you first, and then we'll do it again. When I breathe in love. When I breathe in love. When I breathe out, I send forth hope. When I breathe out, I send forth hope. Let's do it one more time. When I breathe in love. When I breathe out, I send forth hope. Through our breathing alone, love begets hope. I want to give everybody a chance to stand up, find people near you, and hold hands. Notice the hand you're holding. It's good to be together. Let us spend a moment in silence. Remember this togetherness. Go forth in peace. Amen and blessed be. Amen.
And so we thank you all for coming and showing that we are one Brookline together and Boston strong.
So we'll see you at the Clergy Association sometime.